Hey, let's check in with Little Big. So I did tracks 1 to 4, but this book is kind of divvied up weird. So it was part 1, tracks 1 to 4. I've listened to track 5, and then I listened to the track part 2, tracks 1 to 4, all of part 2. So that's what I'm talking about today. Um, and oh, a lot happens, not much happens. Um, this is indeed a family saga, and getting through the part 1 where it's a lot about Smokey and Alice and Violet and John Drinkwater. Um, we go on to the second section. Well, first we end the first section where it's sort of like Smokey is like, oh, I'm going to be in this story, and maybe I'm not actually going to be the main character of this story, and that's okay, I guess. A little bit wistful there. Um, and you get in this story also that Alice, his wife, Daily Alice, also is aware that she's there in a story. And indeed, we've had at the very beginning what I'm going to term as the fairy folk saying, like, well, this is a story it's a long story, and it's going to go on beyond you, beyond your children, beyond your children's children. So that gives you an idea of the scope of the story. So going back, to Violet and John all the way through past. So we're going to continue along. We get a story of is it August, who wishes that all the women that he desires would fall in love with him, which they all do, and he gets a shit ton of them pregnant. And in the end, with parents coming to him saying, "Hi, your son's gotten our kid pregnant," but they're kind of, for these parents at least, are fervent followers, Theopists of Violet, and they're like, "Oh, don't be upset or anything. It's like, oh, there's always room for one more. We just want to know what his intentions are." But he apparently has gotten other women pregnant too, and he fills his pockets full of rocks and is going to go. I guess the implication is he's drowning himself, but you never know. He might just be going into the fairy folks themselves. So we get that story. Um, we get and he was also wanting a gas station. It was kind of odd, but he asked for the gas station, but he also said, like, "Is there anything else you want?" And he asked for that, and that doomed him. Um, we get Oberon, who apparently liked to take naked pictures of he's like a he's like the uncle. He's like a uncle, and he liked to take pictures of Alice and Sophie when they're prepubescent girls, naked pictures. He says, and she's like, "Oh, he didn't think they were dirty," and it's like this is indeed, there's a long heritage. There is a heritage of this, of its Victorian fetishization of prepubescent girls. This is where you get Alice in Wonderland and a lot of stuff like that, which Peter Pan, prepubescent boys as well. It's like it is deeply creepy, and you can't help but think, yeah, some of that might have been innocent, some of that might have been just obsession of the age, but there's definitely also the echoes of pedophilia in there, even though that isn't particularly explored in here, at least so far. Um, there's a scene with Sophie and George, her kind of cousin, a city cousin, and they're having kind of a love affair, which is, I guess, you've got your own kind of like slightly incestuous thing there, but they're also like, here's the album, and they're sort of having an erotic moment over this album of naked pictures of her when she was a prepubescent girl, which is also really creepy and disturbing. Which flows into Sophie gets pregnant, but Sophie goes to Alice and says, "Oh, it's Smokey that got me pregnant. And, you know, she's like, Alice is like, kind of gets tensed up about this, understandably, it being her husband. But she's like, and then Sophie kind of switches her story. It's like, oh no, actually, it was George. It was George. Smokey only slept with me like two, maybe three times. And it's like, okay, he apparently also slept with her. And it becomes sort of okay with Alice, and they're all okay. And indeed, the end section of this, there's a changeling thing because they both Alice and Sophie give birth to kids, and Sophie's child gets taken away. They snip her head. They snip the child has got her head. The baby's got her hand kind of entwined in her mother's hair, and they snip the hair out, snip the hair, and take the baby and leave a changeling behind. And George can't sleep. Not George. Smokey can't sleep, and he goes down. And he talks to like Aunt, is it Cloud? And then he goes up, and instead he goes to Sophie's room because her restfulness always, helped him sleep. And when he comes in there, oh, there's Alice sitting on the bed, and they sit on the bed together. And it seems like just the most natural thing. It's not like, oh, were you going to fuck her again or something like that, which someone might actually think, if it wasn't in this kind of weird kind of fairyland story world, lost world, outside of the real world kind of thing. Um, but yeah, they're sitting there like, do you smell something? And it's like, I think it's like the smell of like whatever the changeling is made of. And that's how this section ends. It is a book where, like, they're talking about like the prices that get to be paid. They're protected. They're cut off from the world. The development doesn't happen in their area because they've paid the prices, and indeed they have to pay the prices. August paid the price by stealing Violet's pack of tarot cards and giving it to the is it Fisher King? I can't remember what he was talking to. And then he kills himself, so the cards come back. So he broke the contract, so she got the cards back. I think that's the clearest indication that he's probably not coming back, that he is dead. But you wonder if it's like, okay, Sophie, her child is going to go away, but then he's going to come back. She's going to come back, and that's okay. Lilac and Lily, lots of other names, which, as Smokey says, like, great, I'm going to be calling each of them by their different names, the wrong names, throughout their lives, and I will indeed, as a reader, be doing the same. Thank you, Crowley. Yeah, so it's like, it's a separate world. We're definitely in a separate world. Someone talks about at some point, like, I don't think I've ever actually left Edgewood, this one little estate. I think I've gone through doors into different areas, different like streams and fields and places, but I've never actually been off the property. I've like, we're all just always here. And there are indications at some points where people want to leave. And maybe they should be allowed to leave. Maybe they shouldn't. It's like, what are they sheltering from? Are they sheltering from modernity? I mean, I think about like fairies in the Victorian age. It's sort of like that. Well, Victorian Edwardian. There's that, like, the collapse of an old class, kind of stayed, what appears to our modern eyes stayed kind of society, like the last vestiges of like a Victorian kind of that, and then shifting into the 20th century, into speeding up of modernity. I mean, they do have the combustion engine here, cars and stuff like that, but you get that sense of like, what are they holding on to? What are they trying to stave off? I mean, there is the war comes up in this, and like, he missed the war, like, you know, that defining thing of probably of the culture of, like, I'm assuming World War I at this point, like a butchery of World War I, which really shattered the Edwardian age. And so, like, you know, are we protected from that? Because that would be something to be protected from, because a lot of people didn't come back from that. And it did change everybody, whether for the good or ill, probably a bit of both. So yeah, that is Little Big for this section, part 2, and then we'll launch into part 3 next time. All right, more videos later.